Hi, everybody. Welcome to Next to Media. I'm joined again this week by Emily Riley, consultant, expert in all things advertising, ad tech, media. We are once again trying our new experiment in a sort of a week in review style pod here. Emily, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back, Mike.
Excited. It's weird. I'm trying not to talk to make this turn this into the tariff show, but it's pretty hard not to talk about that again this week. And again, it's an insane situation that is a moving target. But I wonder, there's hey, this is over, right? Trump stopped it, but then the markets took a hit again. We're still fighting with China. I just read a headline in CNN that consumer confidence is like worse than the Great Recession, which is terrifying. So I don't know if advertisers have any more clarity, but I mean, do we think that what I would worry about is they are going to overreact because there's so much uncertainty. They're just going to cut the hell out of everything because they don't know. Or can they ride this wave and react, and it's going to be, I think, probably very category by category. But where are you said we should break this in two parts, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. If we do that, we're looking at the difference between like the pricing and the products themselves versus the advertisers and what they want to do with their media budgets.
Right.
So if you're an auto manufacturer, you're looking at the price of steel or aluminum or, the electronics and the chips you need to put in your car. And you're making this crazy 2, 3, 4 year projection of, people, not only am I going to be making cars for them that cost 30 or 40% more, they might buy cars really fast right now because they're worried
Which has been happening already. Yeah,
totally. If you're making a laptop, I have a daughter going into high school next year. She's going to need a laptop. Everyone's like, buy it now. Right.
Because the stuff is not that you can't just necessarily buy a US made laptop overnight. It doesn't happen that 100%.
Way. And like, maybe that never happens. Who knows? Right. But it's definitely going to change pricing and it's going to change the supply chain. A lot of brands know, okay, we survived a supply chain crunch during COVID. It sucked. We didn't die. Well, some companies died, but the ones that are still around made it through. So a lot of companies actually have better distributed supply chains. They're a little bit more up to date with their tech so they can track pricing better.
That's a good point. They're not caught flat footed like COVID was like, oh my God, I can't get things. What do I do?
You have these ancient systems in place, processes that were like, you're faxing stuff to other countries.
Right.
And so a lot of that's a little better. It doesn't mean it's good, but I think a lot of companies are better at predicting what's going to happen pricing wise and supply chain wise and okay with the swings, not happy. Totally different world is if you're.
But wait, let me pause you there. Do they still have in those cases you're mentioning electronics cars, they still have to perhaps either rethink their advertising plans, pause things. They can't hide their high prices. Like they're going to be their media planning is going to be affected, right?
100%. I mean, you have to make projections like, okay, am I going to see a 25% increase in purchases for the next 6 months?
Yeah.
And then a huge dip that could last for a really long time. You think about like mortgage rates, for example, the housing market has been suppressed for years because of mortgage rates. So especially big ticket items where people, it's like, I could hold on to my car 2 more years.
Right. I'm not going to replace the dryer or whatever if it's still working.
Totally different than like if it was something small, like a pencil, maybe you buy 10 pencils from China on Amazon and they cost, $7.50 instead of $6.50. Totally different situation. But these big ticket items, that's where like the advertisers are freaking out and making bigger changes.
Yeah. Okay. So then on the consumer side, again, it's so unpredictable and it changes like by the day, but people are naturally going to be nervous and they're expecting prices to rise. I mean, do advertisers have to, the conventional wisdom is you put more money into things that are performance driven, that are trackable, but that could get screwed up, I would think as well, because the things like retail media are going to be less predictable or reliable because of the pricing challenges or supply issues. What does the consumer sentiment mean to you right now?
It's funny. Yeah, I saw that same article about consumer sentiment. It's been pretty bad for a long time.
Right. It wasn't like it was great during the inflation years. Yeah.
Right. It's like worse now than it was, but it's like a chronic problem that advertisers have had to deal with for a while. They have these little bright spots where consumers are feeling good. We're just in this weird phase of turmoil. People are getting laid off. They don't feel job security. It's just a weird time. So what we're in right now is this world where you still have your sales goals. So if you stop all advertising,
Yeah.
It's not going to drive sales. And so then to your point, all right, well, what if I just advertise in my comfort zone? What if I advertise just, lower funnel?
Let's keep that CFO happy, and that's all I can do right now.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, time to do it, because I don't know how many advertisers have actually embraced this, but you read any advertising trade and everybody's talking about outcomes. They're talking about incrementality, better modeling.
Before all this, everything had to be trackable. Everything had to be.
It's been really over a year where there's been a bit of a measurement renaissance, and people are starting to get really smart about measurement. If that's in place in an advertiser's organization, they're going to find out pretty quick. Okay, if we just advertise to the lower half of my funnel, I'm not tipping any new people in here. There's no incremental growth.
No, I'm totally, you can't, I understand the instinct, but to completely abandon demand generation, maybe not 20-year branding goals. I understand that might not be a priority right now, but you can't just advertise to people who are about to buy something anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You have levers. And so, if you're the CMO, you're the head of media buying, and you're getting pressure from your finance team. Now, if you're good at measurement, you can go in there and be like, you want me to show you the levers that I have? If you have this goal for, 2025 sales, these are the things that I can do. If you give me a bigger budget, these are the things that I can do.
Right.
And so instead of it being almost like a game of chicken where the marketer has to just go on faith and hope that they have a supportive team around them, they're pretty empowered to talk about the different ways that they can drive longer term results and margin. So perfect examples, there was tons of discounting when we had the inventory issues, and people would have these huge backlogs of inventory in their warehouses that they were trying to get rid of.
Right.
So when you discount, you get a lot more sales, but the margin sucks.
Yeah. And then you train people that that's what the price is.
100%. So then you have all these people, maybe they would have purchased anyway. And now they're like, oh, but I'm ready for my 25% off coupon now.
Yeah.
And
that's not going to be that situation at all. It doesn't seem like right now, at least for certain products.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's you start showing the levers to your finance team, and they start realizing, okay, this isn't just free money that I'm cutting out of the budget. I'm actually cutting out future sales.
Right. And hurting my bottom line.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There was a piece of the information this week about how it was the obvious, search is going to do well and retail media theoretically, but streaming might not be the safe zone you might expect. Even, that's been the huge story the last couple of years of money moving to TV. It's going to be more trackable, but it's not as trackable as brands would like it to be right now. So I wonder what if there could be some kind of shakeout in that space. I would still think that connected TV is going to do well versus traditional media. And then I also do wonder if this is going to be that moment where we've been saying this forever, but the consolidation, we're already having this conversation in my household about, wait, do we need to pay for all these services right now? We've been putting off that decision, but have we used Disney Plus much lately? That's going to come up as well for people.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. So Operative calls what's happening right now on streaming, they call it linear. What is it? I'm going to think about it. I'll figure it out, but it's basically that live sports and the linear streaming, the stuff that's moving to streaming, the advertisers are going that way, but they're buying the way that they used to on linear.
Because it's essentially linear in a different pipe.
It's the Olympics, the Oscars, these things that bring in big stuff. And then obviously you have March Madness, you have Super Bowl.
The ad breaks are the same kind of model.
My husband's watching the Masters right now on streaming. All that stuff brings in really traditional media buys where they're not looking at performance the way that I think you and I are talking about it, which is, okay, I've been a display buyer on programmatic for forever. And now I'm shifting some of my, pricier inventory over to streaming. They're looking for bottom of the barrel.
Your husband's not buying something during the Masters, I don't think, from the TV
this is so they're really two streaming markets. There's the linear moving to the streaming with big brand dollars. They're going to be the ones that buy at the upfronts. They're going to be the ones that are looking for mass reach. And, that stuff is just going to move to streaming because eyeballs are moving to streaming. Case closed. Totally different story when you talk about the long tail of advertisers that have been driving programmatic for the last 15 years.
Yeah. They're
very cautious about what CTV can do for them. A lot of them don't even have high quality CTV ads. They're just now starting to be able to use, the AI that's coming out of companies like Spaceback and Cargo and Innovet and stuff like that to build their own creative. Before that, it was do I invest $2 million in a top tier video creative so that I can get on streaming, like that's probably the same price as their entire annual budget.
It's not, it doesn't make any sense. The math doesn't work at a certain point.
Yeah, totally. So, it's a bifurcated market right now. It could change.
Yeah, I do. Now that you mentioned that, I wonder, it's going to be, the timing of the upfront with all this chaos is not great to begin with. And you already have this battle of like the tech guys trying to take over a lot of the television space. Are they even better positioned? Because Amazon could come in and say, well, I've got your sports, but I can also track the hell out of everything you do. Why are you on, Warner, Discovery, NBCU anymore? That's going to be I would imagine that's going to be a tough battle, given this weird climate right now. Well,
and your point before about like, is there going to be consolidation? Because like, you're not going to have 10 subscriptions.
No, it feels like the time to merge some of these, but is that, we say that forever.
Yeah, fair. Amazon is huge. Netflix is huge. Like, so is this going to be sort of the thing where like Meredith bought Meredith?
Right.
Not the other way around, so is Amazon going to buy one of these big, traditional media companies, broadcasters, whatever? For sure. I mean, that's where the consolidation is probably going to happen. But, it depends sort of on like what they're good at, so like Amazon is really good at retail. They have reach right now. So like, why would they do that right now? Like, to me, it's not super obvious.
No, I mean, I guess I'm thinking more about like, Paramount Plus and Peacock coming together or something like that.
Right. Like they need deeper inventory. They need, better reach because a lot more buyers are going to want to target audiences. And it's expensive to keep up your tech. Like when you're a media company that's not a tech company by nature, it's a tough. And
most of them aren't that good. I mean, if you I would complain all the time. Netflix always works. The other apps, it's hit or miss with so many of these companies. It's just not as good. They're just not as good at it. It's harder.
And think about it's like Saturday night, you and your family want to watch a movie. You can pick 3 or 4 different places to watch that same movie.
Yeah.
And you go to one app and it's not loading. You're like, I'm out of here.
Forget it. No, there's no way. My wife's going to go to bed if it's not like starting in the next 5 minutes.
I'm familiar.
Yeah. You mentioned retail media. We were talking about, you were talking about how it's long been, Amazon has been the faraway leader, even with all these new networks the last couple of years, but it's still astonishing how much they dominate. And I wonder, that's a great sector right now that everyone's making money, but I wonder if you'll see some kind of, it's another area where we always predict there's got to be some consolidation someday, right? Like, are all these companies going to be in that business for the long haul? Could this be a forcing function to make, Dick's Sporting Goods say, I'm going to work with Walmart instead or something? Where do you think that's going right now?
I'm super surprised that there is not like a trade desk of retail media.
Well, I think the trade desk would like to think they are, right? But I don't know. But you're right. Where is that like roll up?
Where is the roll up? And part of it is, think of like all the different grocery chains, like a Kroger and Albertsons, where they have a pretty decent retail media play.
Yeah.
They're thinking of it more of like an extension of their already pretty robust relationships with their brands. Yeah. And so it's sort of the way that we saw all these big old school name publishers resist being rolled up under an SSP.
Right. It's very similar dynamic.
And I have direct relationships already. We have a lot of money going back and forth on our own. Like, please stay out of my supply chain. You know what I mean?
But for the advertiser, it's not what they don't love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, actually, eMarketer put out something this year that the majority of growth in retail media this year is going to come from off-site. And that's basically just audience targeting.
Meaning the open web for the most part, television? Or?
Yeah, exactly. So mostly it's basically wherever it's enabled. So it's going to be, like if you're working with Amazon, you have huge, huge, huge reach. And so you're like, all right, anybody that shopped for Valentine's Day presents over the last X number of weeks, I can go target them offsite. And it's just like basically any other audience targeting play, but just hopefully better, more real-time data. You compare that to like a regular sized grocery chain buying offsite with them, like it has to get rolled up at some point.
Yeah, because you're not. That's also like those kind of purchases are not like necessarily in grocery mode when you're somewhere else. Where you still might, maybe I'll buy those shoes I was thinking about, but that's like doesn't lend itself to necessarily. And to do that at scale, you need to you have a lot of demand squeezed together. That would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's where if the offsite trend continues, then it's like I need to assemble an audience at scale for this very particular use case. Because you think of the thousands of SKUs that any retailer has, like that audience that day searched for soap, or search for whatever, diet supplements or something like that. It's just not huge.
No. It's funny. I don't see it in my life, at least on the web. You would think the whole web right now would be offsite retail media. I haven't seen a flooding of that yet. That could just be my world, or just because I don't buy anything. But you would think that would be everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the stuff that's included in that is, think of all, you go to I'm still sadly have like a Yahoo email account. You go on my Yahoo email account and every banner ad, and there are many of them, are rando Amazon offsite.
That's a good point.
And that is
that's a lot of people.
Percentage of it. Yeah, totally.
You mentioned Yahoo. Why are they? I'm puzzled by why they want to sell their DSP. I thought it was I know a couple years ago they got rid of their SSP. They seem like a quiet ad tech success story, but I'm maybe they just want to focus. But I was surprised to read about that. I don't have a good sense of why.
It's funny. You had mentioned you wanted to talk about that. And so I was at ad.com for a long time, and they got squished together for a while.
Right.
They got moved and sold.
Endless integrations.
Yeah. Yahoo's DSP is really highly rated by the people that use it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's like one of those workhorses. It's like a Jeep, right? Like it's been around forever. It still kind of works the same way that it always has. People like it.
Right. So why get rid of it? I guess
get rid of it? Except a lot of people say that it's tied. Like one of the things that's good about it is tied to their content. Like Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Sports, like millions of people still go to those sites. So it is weird to think like, what is the tech going to offer?
If you don't have that unique access, what's so great about it if you lose that?
Yeah. So that is where my question mark is.
That's a good question.
Who's going to buy that? And to your point, maybe it's a retail media play where they don't have the mechanics that they want.
Yeah. That's not crazy.
It's stale, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the Trade Desk, it caught my attention that the story broke, I think it was that week yesterday, and it's now all over the place. There are a couple of lawsuits, and I'm going to say that I predicted this because for the longest time I was saying, as the Trade Desk has pushed UID 2.0, I totally understand trying to get away from the cookies and having an alternative, but I kept saying, when is a regulator going to read between the lines here and say, this is all about people's personal email addresses being mushed together anonymously and secretly? Like someone's not going to like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if I know who actually is filing the suits, if you've seen, but what do you think about this? And are they in trouble, or is this random?
So it doesn't look like it's random. It looks like the big thing is, do these data privacy laws relate to advertising in any way where we can stick it to a tech company? So what you're seeing here, to your point, is really deconstructing what the ID is made out of. Fingerprinting, I don't know if you remember, there was like a huge uproar, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago with fingerprinting. It's a little bit like fingerprinting, the way that it works. And this is what I mean. It's like an aggregation of a whole bunch of separate IDs, but to the point where it becomes a permanent ID. And that's sort of the problem. Like an email address is a permanent ID.
People keep them forever, pretty much.
So, the Trade Desk is going to be like, well, we don't know what the email address is. It's hashed. But then, you mash that up with their mobile IDs and you mash it up with their IP address, and you're big enough, like the Trade Desk is, and at some point it becomes a forever mark on who.
Yeah, and it isn't necessarily what people signed up for whenever they provided that email somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So like they could argue, okay, let's pick apart every little thing underneath our ID, and it's all, acquired legally.
Right.
It's what we do with it internally that might be a problem. And so then it just depends on, is the law written in such a way that it's not just about how you acquire and use the data, but how you aggregate the data so that it becomes something that it wasn't before,
Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert. Making that case in court would seem to be a hard one to explain to even savvy professionals. Like I wonder how difficult those kind of cases will be to win.
Right. I mean, one of them is in Northern California. So if there are enough engineers.
Yeah, that's true. And that's an area that is very privacy oriented, you would think.
Yeah. And it's, the other thing that's kind of interesting is like, depending on like the way that it's decided, if there's actually a jury or if it just gets decided for that or whatever, the average American will of course say, I want all my data to be super private. They're also going to say, I want everything to be personalized. And they also assume that every device that they own is tracking their every move currently.
Right.
You're like, how many times have you been somewhere where all of a sudden somebody's phone is like, oh, I'm happy to show you pictures of Milan. And you're like, where did that come from? Like, listening to me,
Yes.
So people are trained to sort of have like two sides to their brain. One is like, oh my God, privacy is so important. And the other one is like, but I don't have it.
Yeah. I've already given up. I've
already given up my privacy. So, this kind of a lawsuit's weird because it's like, well, what about the makers of the devices that have all of these microphones? Like the concept of privacy has exploded, and we're still kind of nitpicking this like one weird area that has to do with like digital advertising.
Yeah.
It's weird to me.
Yeah, it is strange. All right, last topic I've thought of for this week, very much a left turn, and I'm living it with three boys that are obsessed with the Minecraft movie, but which is a remarkable success story for a lot of reasons, it seems like. But this people are saying this McDonald's campaign is one of the campaigns of the year already. I'm not even a big like campaign guy in terms of following these things, but you can't get the toys, like people are obsessed with the sauce, they're selling out. It's a pretty wild integration, and there's a lot of reasons why this movie has done well, but I wonder if there's any lessons learned from this thing.
Oh man. I mean, so you got to tell me more about what it means for your family, but cause like I have, my younger ones are girls and they don't care, but like it's a fully thought through the way that it used to be.
This feels like something out of the 90s or something. Yeah.
It's so old school, right? Like they have product, they have stuff in the movie that's fun for every age, so you have the parents that know what it is, you have the kids that know what it is. They really thought it through and they invested from the very beginning. This is not like, oh, let's just insert a burger with using AI in the production.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that part of it is huge. Like, like if you compare this to other things that your kids have wanted or cared about, like what would you say is the difference here?
It feels, that's a good question because they've certainly like big Marvel events. I'm trying to think if they wanted so-and-so toy especially when they were younger. This feels like it's theirs in a weird way, and it's viral. Like it's very of social media. I mean, first of all, it's a game. It's been around for 15 years. There's people that are nostalgic about it who are like 20 years old, which is funny to me. But it's like their own code. And I don't get the jokes. I don't understand the memes. And it was like it's something that spread where they all had to go and they were all into it. Even apparently, it's funny. The movie is not supposed to be very good. And like the New Yorker ripped it, which I think is funny. Like, why are they even reviewing that? Like, why would anyone be qualified there to judge this thing? But
there aren't that many movies anymore. They have nothing else to look at.
But it's also like the creators are tied into this in a big way, and it's been something that they've been talking up for months. So I think it's a pretty unique set of circumstances.
Yeah,
but it's been pretty fascinating to watch.
Yeah, the inside element of it, it's so true. I mean, there's like a language on, like Snap is a perfect example. I'm not on Snap and my kids know that I'm not. And it's obvious.
And that's part of why they like it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, all you need to do is have a 15-year-old huge video game and tie it into McDonald's and have a movie, and you can do the same thing. Any brand can do this.
Yeah. In advance, that's millions of dollars. You're good to go.
Emily, great stuff. Let's keep doing this. Thanks for your time and your insights. Let's talk again.
Sounds great. Thanks, Mike.